Welcome back. We have the education chair. If the mics were on, you heard about it. She's back here in the studio, Tari Harris, the education chair for the Collier County NAACP, doing a fantastic job out there representing the community and letting a voice be heard. And boy, she's at the forefront right now. If you've been reading the Naples Daily News, you can't help but to see Tari Harris' name involved in what has started a lot of conversation about the N-word. It all started, of course, with the Boston Public television show that ran a few weeks ago, and a couple of months ago they had a repeat, I saw it as well, that dealt with the N-word in the classroom. And we all know that the award-winning Boston Public on Fox is an excellent show that deals with inner-city schools and the teachers and all the controversy pertaining there too. Well, one of the teachers here in Collier County tried to do the same thing that he saw on television. People, that's television. You cannot do this stuff a lot of times and it works out the same way. His name was Damon Jones. He's a sociologist teacher. And he showed the episode of Boston Public on television and then he at the school without permission. And then whatever pursued happened. We'll talk to Tari about that. But let's take a look at a clipping from the Boston Public episode, and we'll come back and look at another clipping after we talk to Tari.
Mr. Hansen, what is this I hear about you teaching your class to use a certain word?
No, I'm not teaching them to use it. I'm just trying...
Saying that it's not so bad if they do.
Look, Marla, I'm well aware of the sensitive nature of this. It's a good book.
What's the title?
You see the title.
I also see you're uncomfortable saying it.
No, I'm not necessarily uncomfortable.
Say it.
I don't want to.
Why not?
Because in this context, you might perceive it as hostile.
It's a hostile word in any context.
Well, you might be right, but that's what we're trying to explore.
No, you don't get to explore that.
I don't? Or one doesn't? Well, I don't get to explore that because I'm white? Because that's one of the questions we're talking about. Maybe you should come by my class.
I think I'll take this directly to Stephen.
I think you'll have to.
Well, free plug for the book again. Of course, the N-word is the title. If I use it, everybody's going to email me a million letters. So I'm not going to use the word. I will say that I have used the word before, but it all depends on what context you use it in. Randall Kennedy. Black people do use this word amongst themselves, so we know that. But it can cause controversy when a white person uses the word. Randall Kennedy wrote the book, a Harvard professor, Ivy League college, The Strange Career of a Troublesome Word. Really interesting read. Encourage everybody to get out and read it. But teachers, you can't just go doing this stuff in school. Tari, give us a little background on what happened and where are we now?
Well, the incident took place on March the 1st, which was the Friday after the original broadcast on February the 25th. Somehow the teacher just happened to have a copy of the videotape of the program, and kind of as a fluke, it ended up being shown in the class, and there was some disruption just before it was brought into the class, so therefore it just caused hard feelings among 3 of the black students who were there.
Now, as education chair for the NAACP, how did you first get involved in the debate?
Well, it was brought to my attention through another school person, and also we knew that it was already somewhat going around the community that it had taken place, and that it had not been contained on the day that it happened. From that point on, I was hoping that the district, according to their reports, were taking care of the matter according to their own policies and procedures. But as I proceeded in my own investigation as the NAACP chair, and as well as being a member of the Collier County Diversity Task Force for the school district, I felt it was important that I know exactly what was going on with this incident, because I know about the zero tolerance policy in the district and also that there are procedures. So as I did my own investigation, I found that things that were reported were not necessarily so, and that the students and the parents had not been brought in for a meeting, and several things that were supposed to have happened had not taken place.
What did the black students tell you when you got a chance to talk to some of them about how they felt when the word was being used in the high school class at Mockley High School?
Well, of course, they were appalled, number one, and disappointed that it would happen in the classroom. And because the other students acted out, you know, it gave them a license to use the word indiscriminately. And as a result, the students were harassed. They've been put under a great deal of pressure as a result of the incident. And there's not been any real closure, not the way that it is designed, for instance, from the Southern Poverty Law Center, which was one of the links from the Fox website that they suggested that you go to if you see the program. And the Southern Poverty Law Center has also a website on tolerance.org, which tells you the steps that schools are supposed to take in regard to incidents of this nature. And none of those procedures were followed.
Now, Damon Jones, the teacher who actually used that showed the tape in the class and generated the discussion, he hasn't been suspended or anything at this point. Is that one of the things that the community is looking to have done, for him to be suspended or actually fired from his job?
I don't think the community is taking a heavy-handed approach to what needs to be done with this one isolated incident as much as they are concerned about diversity training throughout the district. That seems to be the missing link that probably could have prevented this situation from occurring in the first place. Now,
Damon Jones, a white teacher.
Yes.
Does that necessarily make him racist, that he tried to, I know this is all conjectural, to try to stimulate a discussion about something that's a word that's pretty much been used for hundreds of years here in this country? And there are some who would say, well, what's the big deal?
Well, for people who watched the broadcast, and of course it was rebroadcast 2 weeks later because it did develop so much attention, that it explained very honestly and openly that it should not be done. Even the union steward who was in the scene with the teacher suggested that it not be done. The other part of that is, if teachers have not been trained through diversity and understand how to approach a subject like this, they really shouldn't attempt to do it in a classroom. The other problem is that if it doesn't, if it isn't given the kind of attention that it deserves, because it does start all kinds of things, rumors and all kinds of unpleasant things to result, that there needs to be some controls and some procedures in place to keep this from happening.
Okay, we're going to cue our camera director. We're going to take a look at another clipping, but I have a question now. Mark Twain, in all of his writings, particularly Huckleberry Finn, during that time period, constantly used the word in books. And I know there are some school systems who are trying to get those types of words out of those books. But do you see that as two separate issues in terms of the Huckleberry Finn use of the N-word as opposed to the way it was being done in that class?
Well, the problem with how it was done in the class is that it was taken in the context of a contemporary situation. Huck Finn, of course, is a historical situation, which is, you really can't compare apples and oranges.
The word was pretty standard back then for slaves.
And also the fact that black history has not been properly taught in the schools, and that there's so much missing as far as African-American students not knowing why the word has such a connotation, and also the legal ramifications of it, that it brings the whole thing into question.
Now, as we work our way through this whole debate, should we take from this, on the one hand, hey, maybe nobody should use it, even African Americans shouldn't even use it amongst themselves in an endearing way, rappers shouldn't use it in their music, we just shouldn't hear the word at all? Is that realistic to ever happen?
Well, I would hope, in the best of circumstances, that we would not use that word in our vocabulary. It is not a word of endearment. It's been typecast that way so that people could make money from it, of course, because of the nature of the word. But no, it should not ever be used. Okay, speaking of making money from it, Chris Rock, right now, let's take a look at this. Chris Rock.
There's like a civil war going on with black people, and there's two sides. It's black people, there's niggas. The niggas have got to go. And I see some black people looking at me, man, why you gotta say that? Why you gotta say that? It ain't us, it's the media. The media has distorted our image to make us look bad, okay? When I go to the money machine tonight, all right, I ain't looking on my back for the media. I'm looking for niggas.
Okay. All right. Listen, so clearly people do not have a problem with Chris Rock using the word, like my man Richard Pryor. But if Gary Shandling did this, Gary Shandling, one of the funniest people on earth, you'd all be sick, right?
Because when a white man uses the word, it smacks of bigotry. Right or wrong, that's just the way it is.
Come on, the way Chris Rock was using the word, I mean, that seems more like bigotry.
No, because Chris Rock has a pride in African Americans. Chris Rock knows black history. And that routine, it's like he's challenging a black man to take responsibility for his image. And his anger and humor, it comes from a place. It doesn't put us down. If a white person uses the word, it puts us down.
Okay, so let me get this straight. If Chris Rock were white, and he knew everything he knew and felt everything he felt, everything was exactly the same, you'd still have a problem with him using the word, simply based on the color of his skin?
Yes.
Why?
Because if Chris Rock were white, he wouldn't know what he knows.
Okay, Andre, let's say I agree with that. But you're still making distinctions based on skin color. I mean, how could that be okay?
It just is.
Well, you're gonna have to do better than it just is.
It's my right. I'm black, so... Oh, okay, look. You can talk about your mother. Call her whatever you want. She's your mother. But if I talk about your mother the same way, that would be wrong.
Okay, that's a good analogy, but it doesn't quite hold up. Because, let's say I'm talking about my mother, and I call her the N-word with affection. I mean, it's my mother, right? Right?
And of course, right there, that was the principal staring the teacher down, and it was a dramatic fade to a commercial. Now, and there were some good points that were brought out in there, and I hope people can take those from that. But what has been the damage so far that's been done, and what is the community expecting going forward?
Well, part of the damage is a state of confusion. Number one, the references that were used in the show came from comedians, and I certainly would take a step higher if I were in education and consider what people like Cornel West or Henry Louis Gates or someone of that caliber would have to say about the use of the word rather than a comedian. The other part of that I would rather say is that if we're going to do true diversity training in our schools, because it does reflect on the achievement level of students in school because of maybe biases or attitudes of teachers, then we need to be concerned about that. It's definitely time now to make sure that teachers are aware of their responsibilities and what they are supposed to know when they are in the classroom. And I've brought some books there that I know you're going to mention.
We'll show some of those books in a second. Now, Rosalind Wright, who's the district director for Collier County for diversity, is going about trying to get some diversity training done in the schools, I understand. But prior to now, there's no requirement for diversity training amongst the teachers. Do you see that there's a reception now to having that be a standard part of the training process of educators in the Collier County school system?
What I know up to this point is that one of the problems we're having is collateral damage, you just asked, has to do with some teachers who really have been very vocal about not wanting diversity training in the schools to begin with, and now this only magnifies it. We're just going to have to take a very hard line stand on this and make sure that it's done.
Mm-hmm. There are some recommended readings that you talk about with about a minute left. I'm going to hold up some of these books and let people take a look at them and tell me why you recommend these. This is We Can Teach What We Don't Know.
We can't teach what we don't know.
See, I didn't go to college.
That's all right. It's about.
I went to Florida Gulf Coast University. Just kidding.
It's about white teachers teaching in multicultural schools, multiracial schools, and it is somewhat of the standard in the field.
Lies, my teacher told me.
Yes, it tells a different story of what history is to people of color as opposed to the way it's been taught as from a Eurocentric point of view.
Us and Them, A History of Intolerance in America. There's a lot of books been written about this, huh?
Yes, and it's becoming more available, and I think just a better knowledge of what the reason those words have been used in the past.
Got about 30 seconds left. There's a meeting taking place. What, when, and where?
Immokalee High School is having their annual school board meeting in Immokalee on April the 18th.
And you're inviting the public out.
They should always come to the school board meetings.
Okay. As the saying goes on this particular show, for those who say it can't be done, they are usually interrupted by those like Tari Harris of the NAACP who are doing it. We'll see you next week.